friends. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It depends where are you located. Geoff MacDonald is from London, from England, former global vice president HR of Unilever. Believe it or not, because Unilever is such a huge company, and I cannot imagine for you running HR, which is the most fragile, thing. And there were more than 170,000. I cannot believe my eyes. 100,000 people. It's like the whole city, the whole world, and you were running the mood of these people. You were running. You were running them. So my first question to you, Geoff, what do you think? What is the secret of this company? Because a lot of companies are coming, bankrupting, disappearing. Some companies, you remember Sony? We all talk Sony, or we talk Kodak. And now even some people, young people, they don't know what we're talking about. Yeah. What is the secret of Unilever? How it stays alive for so long?
Yeah, so thank you for having me today and having the opportunity to talk with you. And I didn't run the whole of HR, but I was the global vice president for HR for all of our marketing, communications, and sustainability efforts around the Unilever world.
This is huge. This is the most important.
Yeah. And we had a motto in Unilever, which was all around this concept of purpose and the importance of purpose. And, brands with purpose perform. People with purpose also perform. And organizations with purpose last. So when you ask me, what is the secret, do I think, of Unilever? I think the secret is Unilever has always been an organization that has been clear on a sense of purpose, which goes beyond growth and profitability. I often say that companies what is the purpose of an organization? What is the purpose of a company? And most people will say to me, well, it's to make profit and it's to grow. Well, I think that's the consequence of being a good business. So the consequence of being a good business is you grow and you profit, but it's not its purpose. And if you were to go back to the origins of Unilever, Lord Lever, who came up with a bar of soap called Sunlight, what did he want to do with that bar of soap? He wanted to bring hope. He wanted to bring cleanliness to people here in the north of England. That's what he wanted to do with the bar of soap. Now, if he were to sell more of it, yes, he was going to grow and it was going to become profitable. And I think that sense of purpose, contribution to society, doing well by doing good, and a theme of really caring for the employees, for the various stakeholders. I think in many ways that has been the secret to Unilever being able to sustain itself for almost 100 years now. It became Unilever back in 1929. 2029 will be its 100-year anniversary, and I think it's about this sense of purpose and this contribution to society beyond just being an organization that is driven solely by how much money it's going to make and how much. Of course, that's important. Growing
Geoff,
and being profitable.
Is somebody from the family, the family who originated the company? Of course, it's 100 years. He's not survive anymore because he's not Duncan MacLeod, forever young. He cannot live to 100. But is somebody from the family, grandchildren, great-grandchildren? Nobody.
No. I mean, there's very. Over those 100 years, yes, in the beginning there was, but when Lever and a Dutch company called Margarine Unie, when they combined to form Unilever, it became this corporate entity. And no, it's not as if it's a family run with a strong family influence, but I think it is an organization that is founded on a sense of purpose, And I think that's part of the heritage. It's part of the DNA of the organization. Now, yes, there have been years where it's kind of lost its way in some ways in terms of that sense of purpose. But I think being a more purposeful organization has really helped to maintain and to sustain that organization for over 100, close to 100 years.
Geoff, what you will think if the company has a very good purpose, if it is very meaningful, if it contributes to the society, but it doesn't make any profit by some reason, maybe because of, there can be thousands, maybe because of pandemic or because of revolutions or because of changing of president, will you consider it a business, or in your mind they are losers?
Now, look, if a company is not going to make any money and is not going to grow, then it's, it is a loser. I mean, it's important that companies grow and are profitable. But I think what generates that growth, what generates the profit, what generates new innovations, what generates your ability to attract talent, what generates your ability to engage people so that they'll go the extra mile, what generates your ability to better manage risk, is having a greater sense of purpose and meaning as an organization. People want to work for companies these days. They want to work for companies that have a sense of meaning, that have a sense of purpose, that feel that they are making a contribution to the world that we're living in. Companies are very powerful in the way in which they can contribute. And so this concept of doing well by doing good, I honestly believe in that concept, that you can do well by doing good. You don't just have to do good. You can do well as a result of it.
So it doesn't matter what you're selling. You can sell soap, cars, dress, but something not bad, because let's say if you're selling weapon, it's not ethical.
Yeah, I think you've always got to ask the question in a business or an organization. I think you've got to ask the question, why do we do what we do? Why do we sell tobacco? Why do we sell arms? And I think by continually asking that question, why, I think you can get to a greater sense of purpose and meaning that makes a positive contribution to the very troubled world that we live in today. Climate change, inequality, these are significant factors that are troubling our world today. And I think workplaces and organizations have got to begin to step up and really understand and answer the question, why do we do what we do? So if they say, oh, I do it because to make profit, why? Until you get to that essence of the role that your organization can play in society.
Do you have this feeling, as I have that feeling, that there are more people who are conscious now? They're very intelligent. There are a lot of people who are studying a lot. They have a lot of knowledge. They're very powerful, ambitious. There are a lot of people like that. But at the same time, something going on with the society, that it's going down by the moral things, by the, I don't know, by influence, by something. So on the one hand, there are people who are like superheroes, and their number is increasing, but the situation in the world is decreasing. Yeah. Why?
Yeah, look, I don't know the answer to that, but I think what I have seen over the last, I don't know, maybe decade, is I think I've seen a very strong polarization of points of view. So my point of view and your point of view is the only point of view. And I'm right and you are wrong. And I think what we see very little of is what I call the gray, when we bring both of our points of view together and we come to a new point of view, a new understanding of one another. And I think we've seen, politicians around the world that have sown hate and fear into society, and in so doing have got into power and have created very, very polarized points of view around stuff. And I think we've lost our ability to be comfortable with the gray and to meet each other in the middle.
There are different colors: yellow, violet, pink. It's not only black and white. There is
Exactly.
gold and there is
Exactly.
silver. There are millions of things. And as
Exactly.
an artist, as a person who creating, he can say, why you go only left and right
Yeah.
and finish? And that is
Yeah.
very strange. What do you think, Geoff, about working place? Because you were responsible for creating this unique working place. I know it's not only you, it's a team. How you see the, because after pandemic, a lot of people, they hate offices. They say, we don't have office anymore. My office is the kitchen. My office is Starbucks. My office is whatever, but not the office.
Yeah.
What is the future of the working place in your
Yeah.
mind?
Look, I've got a view on this, and I think that, you know, the future of the workplace is a far more flexible and fluid workplace. But I do, and what do I mean by that? I think we've got to be able to show far more flexibility, be far more open-minded, be far more inclusive, be far more human in workplaces. You know, stop treating people like units of production and begin to see them as human beings who bring their whole selves to work. But I think and making people feel inclusive and allowing for a certain degree of flexibility. However, having said that, I don't believe that we should not be expecting people to come together in a workplace a number of times a week. You know, and I have a view that we should expect people to come into the office 3 times a week. And you know, it's all good and well for a CEO or a chief financial officer to be saying, well, we don't need to go back into the workplace now, because they've got a lovely big study at home. They've got all the right materials around which they can do their work, versus a young graduate who's just joining a company, who's living in a digs with other people, who's having to do his or her work on the end of his bed or her bed, with people next door making a noise. I mean,
It's not fair. It's not fair that somebody is
It's not
in a
fair.
great place and the other one, he has noise,
Yeah,
dog, cat,
but
and yeah, and everything, and
but
big
I also
noise.
think going to work is very good for our well-being, and let me tell you why. I mean, going into the workplace, I mean, having a job in the workplace, one, it gives you a sense of purpose, all right? Secondly, it forces you into a routine every day, or maybe 3 days a week. You've got a routine. You get up, you get changed, you get on your train or do whatever to get into the workplace. Thirdly, it gives you the opportunity to build relationships with other people, to become part of a community. I mean, these are all things that are very, very good for our well-being, our physical health, our emotional health, our mental health.
So,
And
Geoff, you will not believe to people who will say, "I want to be freelancer. I want all. I never was in the office in my life." But then it ends up that he celebrates his birthday alone because he has zero friends, zero. He
yeah,
doesn't have anybody he's working with because
yeah,
all others are also freelancers in the
yeah.
internet.
Yeah, I don't believe that the world of work is going to become a whole bunch of portfolio careers and freelancers. I really think that you have to have a core group of employees. I think that those employees should be expected to be in the office at least 3 times a week, where you can build a sense of community, relationships. You can spark off one another. Creative ideas often come at the water cooler. When I go and get myself a glass of water and I just start chatting to somebody, there's suddenly a new idea comes to mind. I mean, that's not happening if I'm sitting at home in my dining room or at the end of my bed all on my own. So I think the future of the workplace has got to become far more inclusive. It's got to be more flexible. It's got to be more human. But I think there are certain boundaries to that. And I think we should be expecting people to be in the office at least three days of a week.
Geoff, tell me, please, what do you think as a person who is leading the company? Because he also has a lot of problems. He looks at what's going on in the political situation. There's so many changes. I don't know. In my life, I never expect that many changes. Maybe as a woman, I like to have a safe place. I'm not ready to change something every day. But the situation is now, even looking at our company, that we have challenges almost every week. Okay, not every day, but every week. And you have to do something to accept it. Who is this leader? Is he kind of monster who is never tired? Is he Tom Cruise who is, driving motorcycle and BMW and, helicopter? Because the leader is also tired.
Yeah.
Who is he, the leader of this new normal, in your opinion?
Yeah, look, I think the leader of this new normal, and I'm not entirely sure yet what the new normal is. Do you know what I mean? I'm not entirely sure what we mean by this new normal. But I do think that I think one of the positive consequences of the pandemic is that organizations have seen the benefit of being just a little bit more human. Being just a little bit more human. Now, let me give you an example of that. Mere fact that we have to do a call now during the pandemic over Zoom, and my cat jumps up onto the table while I'm having this meeting. And my boss says, what a lovely cat you've got. And we begin to have a conversation about the cat. I mean, that's created a more human connection. And we're not just talking about work. We're talking about a little bit about my life, and he or she knows that I've got a cat. And so I think one of the consequences of the pandemic is that we've begun to create more human organizations. And I think we've begun to realize how important it is to care for the well-being and the health of our people in workplaces. And so I think the leader of the new normal is going to have to be a leader who he or she recognizes how important his or her well-being is in being able to perform. I often say that you can't care for the well-being of other people if you don't care for your own well-being. And so in order to be that leader who is going to, in this new normal, who is going to bring energy, who's going to be able to be more human, I think those leaders have got to begin to tend to and focus on the most critical enabler of their performance, and that is their overall health, their well-being, their physical health, their mental health, their emotional health. And in doing that, show the same level of care and empathy and compassion to their employees.
It's very interesting because you started from here, then you made a big round of working with so many people, with achievement, with everything, and then you came again to the same point, which is a human, which is well-being, which is you. So you cannot perform incredibly if you are not strong. If you are not strong, how can you help? As in the Bible, it said, love yourself. Love others as you love yourself. If you don't love yourself, how can you give them well-being? If in your house there is no love, there is no understanding. So at the end of the days, we should create that. Tell me, please, are you missing your work because you were working so many years with them and you became?
No, I'm not.
You're not.
No, I'm not. My work today is fueled by a very, very deep sense of purpose. And that is to create workplaces all over the world where every single person in a workplace feels that they genuinely have the choice to put their hand up and ask for help if they are struggling mentally or emotionally. Every single workplace, everywhere in the world, if you were struggling physically, you would turn to somebody and ask for some help. And it should be no different if you're struggling mentally or emotionally. And that sense of purpose has fueled me over the last 9 or 10 years. And it has taken me to people. It has taken me to places I could never, ever have imagined. I could never have imagined talking to you this afternoon 10 years ago. How could I ever have imagined something like that happening? And so my work...
England meeting, and for the program who is originated from Dubai. It's very difficult to imagine. And my last question to you, Geoff, as your biggest achievement at the moment, maybe you helped one person or maybe 10 people. Who is that person or that you are proud of?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, there are so many people who've heard my story, who've heard me speak, who send me messages of the impact that it has on their lives, on their family. But let me tell you what I think was one of my proudest moments. Probably 6 or so months ago, I was asked to do a talk at a university to a bunch of university students. And at the end of the talk, they asked the students to give some feedback through the word cloud tool. I don't know if you know what a word cloud is, but it's basically, you put a word onto a platform, and if a lot of people think that the speech was inspirational, then that's the biggest word that comes up amongst other words, which there might have been a small little word that said boring, or there might have been a very big word that said inspirational or energized. And at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen was one sentence from a particular individual in the audience. And you know what the sentence said? The sentence said, "I've now decided I'm not going to end it."
Wow. That is very strong.
I've now decided I'm not going to end it. Meaning he or she was not going to end their life after listening to what I had to say. For me, I think that was one of my most proud and rewarding moments over the last 9 years.
Of course. Whatever we can save the life of one person or of 2 people or of 10 people, that is a miracle. It's like a surgeon. He's coming with the gloves, he's cutting something. In a way, you are doing the same.
Yeah.
But
I think it was Ralph Emerson who once said, if we can just make one person breathe a little easier every single day, just one person, that is the true definition of success.
And by the way, if you will think like this, you will be always happy, because then it's very doable. You shouldn't be, in the Forbes list. You shouldn't be Bill Gates. You should be milliardaire. You should be Elon Musk. You will remove it, because then you will compare. He's doing that. He's in the moon, but I'm still here in London or in Almaty. But if you can make one person breathe easier, then you can do, I can do,
Exactly.
people with whom we work, they can do, and then we can do it together.
You know what the enemy of joy is? Comparison.
No.
Comparison is the enemy of joy.
I see. That is all this social media, Instagram, Facebook, which is all about. It's comparison, compare.
Exactly.
Oh, he's in Monaco and I'm still in London.
Exactly. So don't compare. Just be who you are and help to make one person breathe just a little easier every day. And that is success.
I would like to thank you very much, because you make my heart very warm. I will say in Japanese, domo arigatou gozaimashita, since my first foreign language is Japanese. It was big pleasure and big joy. And I will try to